All right, let's jump into this deep dive. We're tackling inventory management today.
Yeah, we've got those supply chain savvy podcast clips you sent over.
Should be interesting.
Definitely. Lots to unpack there, and hopefully we can help our listeners understand how it applies to them. Masood Khan.
He's the podcast host, right?
Yeah, Khan. He gets into some pretty interesting stuff.
He does. He jumps right in talking about this ABC analysis and, what was it, EOQ.
Yeah, ABC analysis and EOQ. Sound a little intimidating at first, I know.
It does. Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's simpler than it sounds. Imagine this. You're running a grocery store.
Okay, got it.
Are you going to manage, say, like a really rare, expensive spice?
Like saffron.
Yeah. Saffron, perfect example. You going to manage that the same way you manage bottled water?
No way.
Exactly.
Saffron is pricey.
Exactly. And that's what ABC analysis is all about. It's about prioritizing your inventory,
So the saffron would be?
your A items. High value, potentially high risk. Need to keep a close eye on those.
Makes sense.
Then you've got your B items, more like your everyday things, and then your C items.
Yeah.
Your high volume, low cost goods.
Bottled water, right.
Exactly. Bottled water is a great example of a C item. And, by understanding this, you can allocate your resources way more efficiently.
So instead of spending all day worrying about the bottled water.
Right. You're focusing on the things that really matter for your bottom line.
Love it. Now, what about EOQ? What is that all about?
EOQ, that's the economic order quantity. It sounds really complex,
Yeah, it does.
but it's basically figuring out how much you should order.
Okay, yeah. To find that sweet spot.
Right. Not too much, not too little.
Because if you order too much.
You're stuck with a ton of inventory you got to store and pay for.
Exactly.
But if you don't order enough.
Empty shelves.
Exactly. And then nobody's happy.
And you lose money.
Yeah. It's all about striking that balance, minimizing those costs, and keeping those customers happy.
So like with the bottled water, it's like finding that right amount so you don't end up building a swimming pool in the back. But you also don't want customers like dying of thirst, right?
Exactly. It's a balancing act for sure, especially when you consider things like unexpected events.
Oh, right. Like a heat wave hits and suddenly everyone and their dog needs a gallon of water.
Precisely. And that's where safety stock comes in.
Ah, safety stock.
Oh,
That's gotta be important.
Super important. It's basically having a buffer, just in case. Like, remember that whole sriracha shortage a while back? Companies with a good safety stock, they were fine. But the ones caught off guard, not so much.
It's like having that emergency stash of, I don't know, chocolate or something. You hope you never need it, but when you do, you're really glad you have it.
Exactly. It's about being prepared.
So we've got our ABCs, our EOQ, our safety stock. We're like inventory masters now, right?
Well, we're getting there. But Khan throws in another concept we should touch on, vendor-managed inventory, VMI.
VMI. Okay, that sounds a little more advanced.
It's actually pretty straightforward when you think about it. So instead of you always having to keep track of your inventory levels, your supplier does it for you.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they have access to your data, see what you're selling, and they make sure you're always stocked.
So they basically become an extension of your team.
Pretty much. You can be a really efficient way to manage inventory, especially if you have a good relationship with your supplier.
Interesting. And speaking of tracking and data, Khan also talked about something called inventory turnover ratios. Now that sounds a little intimidating, I gotta admit.
Don't let the name scare you. It's just a fancy way of saying how quickly you're selling your inventory.
Okay, so the faster the turnover, the better.
Generally, yes. A high turnover means your products are flying off the shelves, which is a good thing.
Right. Means you're making money.
Exactly. But there's a catch. If your turnover is too high, you might run into those stockouts we were talking about earlier.
Ah, right. Empty shelves again.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot. Selling quickly, but not so quickly that you can't keep up.
So it seems like balance is key when it comes to inventory.
Absolutely. It's not just about having stuff. It's about having the right stuff at the right time in the right amount.
Music to my ears. So for our listener who's been absorbing all of this inventory wisdom, what's the one big idea they should take away?
That inventory management is about a whole lot more than just boxes on shelves.
It's about strategy.
Exactly. It's about efficiency, making smart decisions, and understanding that every item in your inventory tells a story.
And hopefully, by using some of these techniques, we can make those stories a little more interesting.
Absolutely.
Now, for our listeners out there, here's something to ponder. If you could implement just one of the techniques we discussed today in your own life or work, which one would it be? And what impact do you think it would have? Keep those brains buzzing, and until next time, Happy optimizing.